the session. I'm very happy to be partnering with Yad Ben Zvi in the showing of this film, and I'm looking forward to Professor Saadoun's presentation. Over to you, Chaim.
Good evening from Israel, and thank you. I just shared the PowerPoint, please. Okay, I would like to thank the Harif associations and Mrs. Lynn Julius for the cooperation with the Documentation Center of North Africa during Second World War at the Ben Zvi Institute. And I would like also to thank Amos Karan, the director of the film, for the cooperation with us, with Harif, and with the Ben Zvi Institute. It is a very interesting documentary film, and I think that this film is another step in shaping the collective memory of the underground activity in Algeria during the war. It is really a very important film, and thank you, Amos, for this film. Since I have been researching the subjects for many years, too many years, I have many historical aspects to refer to, but I don't think this event is the appropriate framework to deal with those questions, those historical perspectives. But the researchers who presented information and historical perspective on the subjects are very important researchers, and I greatly appreciate their contribution. I know that even a film frame will not be enough to develop all the possible aspects, but I would like to go deeper into 2 or 3 issues that raised from the film, and which is, why didn't they know about this underground activity? Just a minute, please. This is our center, this is our website of the center. I have 3 aspects to deal with: the historical aspect, the historiography, and the collective historical memory. The subject must be seen in 2 complementary axes: the French North Africa X in the context of the resistance actions, and in the context of the shared history of these operations, and the North African countries in the context of the resistance actions. For example, resistance activity was also in Tunisia. Just a minute. Was also in Tunisia, and also in French and Spanish Morocco. And I don't want to go deeper and to develop those aspects. And it was related to the activity in Algeria and even preceded it chronologically. I would like just to mention the activities of Emmanuel Mounier, Le Réseau Mounier, that was very important in Tunisia, the Mounier network, espionage network. This was essential for the Allied operations in the Mediterranean, even before the Operation Taurus. This means before November 1942. And yes, Jews took an important role in this underground of Mounier. Yes, of Mounier in Morocco and in Spanish Morocco. We need to recognize the fact that we are discussing underground activities in North Africa at all, and not only in Algeria. And that in this activity in the 3 countries that the Jews took part, not only in Algeria. The second aspect is the historiography of the subject. That means what we really not know, what did we know on the subjects, what entered to the collective historical memory, and how did the members of the underground want us to remember this activity. Of all the significant events that happened on to the Jews on North Africa, at least in the 19th and the 20th century, the period of World War II benefit from particularly a large amount of sources, of personal memories, literary expressions, films, and etc., and more and more. And we have José Abulquerque's memory, Ezra Sheki's memory, and more and more. And also a large number of studies in the subject. And despite of this, I think that there is still many possibilities for deepening the research. The research on the subject began immediately after Second World War by the activity of the Centre of Contemporary Jewish Documentation, le CDGC, in Paris. It was Yitzhak Schneerson, here in the slide, who led the CDGC in researching the issue considering important for the trial of Nazi war criminals after the war. One of them was the situations in North Africa. So he sent to North Africa. This was the background to the appeal to two researchers, Michael Ansky, one of them, to go to North Africa and to try to understand what happened there during the war. One, and the first of two books that appeared just after the war were published and that presented the topic of the underground activity in Algeria. The first book was this, as you see in the slide here, Michael Ansky books, Les Juifs d'Algérie. But the most important is there is a lot, many pages relating to the underground activity, and today is the best of an article, and I will go back to that, of José, is based on an article that José Abulquerque wrote just after the war. And the second book is Les Juifs de Tunisie sous Vichy et l'occupation. This is Jacques Sabi. I don't know, it's a pseudonym of a man. His name is Hoysenson. I don't know why he chose to use a pseudonym after the war, but this was his choice. What is important in those most scholars until recently followed, all the scholars until now followed what Sabil and Ansky wrote in their book. And I think that today we have more and more knowledge about documents and other researches that were made by other scholars. So this was the beginning of what we know about the real academic research. But we know something else about the collective memories. And I want to go to the first publication that was done by José Abulquerque. We saw him at the film. And it was written in August 1943. That means less than 1 year before, after the war. In Le Cahier Français, that means the review of the French authorities, the French representative of the French government in exile in London. And I don't know exactly what happened and how were the relations between de Gaulle and José Abulquerque at the time that he allowed him to publish the article that deal in a special review, a special in this special review dealing with the questions of the war. And he talked about the place of the French resistance, not Jewish French resistance, the French resistance in North Africa, in the all activities of the resistance in French. This is very important and significant article for shaping the collective memory. The journal was published in London by the French government in exile and covered the war. This is the goal. We saw it also at the film. Abulquerque was in Algeria. But even before this publication, the fighters of the 8th November established an association. So here you can see the file in which the association was formatted, was established in December 1942. And that deal with the preservations of the memory of the war and this and of some other diaries that they had after the war. The association collected documents, recorded memories, at least, and had a list of the Jews that were part. This is the member card, and this is the first meeting on December 1943 of the operation, and this is the annual, that means the list of the people that participated at the operations. This was formed by Raul Cohen Haddad, and today Miss Nicole Cohen Haddad, the daughter of Raul, who was the secretary of the associations and collected all the materials, continue his activity. Nicole is very active, particularly, just a minute, here, one of the activities of the association, and they have a very interesting website called Le Compagnon de 8 novembre 1942. As an historian researching the subject, I watched the film with different eyes and look at in every image or expression for what else can we ask and what else can we found in the archives about the subjects. Amos' film is important in encouraging researchers to continue trying understanding this very fascinating activity. Historians have a lot of material at their disposals, and only more and more researchers who really want to engage to this subject are needed. I would like to thank again Amos for the film and Lynn for the cooperations. I hope that this is the beginning of a fruitful friendships and cooperations with the treasuries that we have at the Ben Zvi Institute. And finally, I would like to thank my team at the Ben Zvi Institute, and especially Ms. Nestia Friedman here with us for the helping and for the contact with Amos and Lynn. Thank you all. I don't want to go deeper. There is a lot to say, but let's begin the talk, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Hayim Sadoun. So we have an opportunity you have an opportunity to ask questions to the director or to Professor Sadoun, or please do type your question in the chat, as there are still quite a few of you on the call. And I'd like to thank all those who came from Lockdown University to join us, as well as those who are here from the Ben Zvi Institute, and of course our familiar, our fan club, our Harif fan club. Just see. I think there have been questions about whether the film could be shown more widely. Amos, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. This film is actually available for quite some time on Amazon Prime streaming in North America. In North America, it's pretty easy to find it. Our North American distributor, Gravitas, has us on all the like anywhere you can rent films. Unfortunately, it's not available for free on Amazon Prime anywhere, but you can rent it on Amazon. You can rent it on YouTube. It is actually available for free on Tubi, if anyone's familiar with that, Tubi, which is Tubi, yeah. So that's like an ad-supported, what do you call it, streamer. It's ad-supported streamer, but it's free to download. It's free to view it on your desktop. So Tubi, someone could write that in, I guess. And now in Europe, it's a bit of a different story. I don't know how many of you are in Europe. I assume a lot of you are. We have a separate distributor in Europe, and we've been talking to them about trying to get similar setup with streamers in Europe, and they're still working on it. But I'll get an update hopefully very soon, and as soon as I do, I can let the wonderful people at Harif know, and you can pass on that information.
Thank you very much. We'd be very happy to do that. Yeah. So I have a question, which is, sure, how come you got interested in this subject?
Great. So I don't know if my mom is available here. I know she had some technical issues, so she may or may not be available here to actually talk. I think she is listening. I hope she got her sound working. But it all really came down to my mom, who is her name is Sarah Tayeb Karlan, and she's quite a well-known historian and author, sociologist as well, with a specialty in the history of North African Jewry. She was born in Tunisia, So she has a very keen interest in anything to do with North African history, North African Jewish history. And she came across, it's kind of an interesting story. She came across the book that was mentioned early in the movie by Gita Amipaz Silber, about the Jewish resistance of 1942, the Algerian Jewish resistance of 1942. So she saw the book in a little bookshop in Jerusalem. This would have been probably about 12 years ago, something like that. And then she told me about this, and she said, you know, you're in film, you do media and stuff like that. No one's done a movie about this. At least she wasn't aware of it at that time. And someone has to do a movie about this, and in her mind it was going to be like with actors and like a Spielberg type of thing, but I had to let her know that would cost about $50 to $100 million. So we lowered our expectations, and we ended up making a documentary film of it. So it was my mother who brought it to my attention. And I brought on my co-producer and co-director, Aline Robichaud, who couldn't make it, unfortunately. She's busy working on our new project actually right now. But Aline came on, and she was very instrumental in helping us get the film made as well.
Right. I think yours is only the second film to have been made on this subject.
Correct. Yes. So while we were in the middle of our production, we realized that there was another film that came out in the midst of us making our film, because as probably a lot of you know, it takes usually many years to make films. So we were first on the scene when we started, but we weren't by the end. Yeah.
Right. We actually hosted a screening of Night of Fools, which is the other film that was made by Rami Kimchi, who was an Israeli director, and he came over to London for the screening. But it was a completely different treatment, I think. Yours is a much more factual, approach, and you interviewed lots of historians and experts, whereas he did a sort of more of a sort of comic book approach, if you like, with all the little anecdotes.
With lots of reenactments. And that's actually actually something that personally, as a director, I wanted to avoid reenactments. It's just sort of a subjective artistic decision, but I tend to shy away from reenactments in the kinds of movies that I like to make. So that's why we use the animations that you see in the movie instead of reenactments, and we had a very talented animator help us out with that.
Did you actually visit Algiers when you made the film?
Okay, so that's another very good question. We wanted to, and we were fully prepared to, although our budget would have been really stretched. We had a minuscule budget to make this movie, as with most documentaries, but ours was at least half of what most documentaries would cost. But we wanted to, but Algeria was in the midst of a lot of turmoil. I don't want to say civil war, but it was a very bad time to go, and we were warned by quite a few people. So actually what we did, but you do notice that we do have footage in Algiers. So what we did, because we live in this amazing technological age, we actually found a film crew of young Algerians in Algiers, and we were able to communicate with them about which parts of the city we needed to be filmed for the film. And they did it. It was a little bit harrowing, because we had to at some point they were afraid of actually getting the footage out, and they were afraid that they would be caught filming, because at a certain point, right in the middle of that, they told us, we can't walk around with cameras anymore. It's really scary now, and all this stuff. So we actually didn't end up getting all the footage that we had asked for, but we got most of it. Yeah.
Very good. Nicole Cohen-Haddad, who's very involved in this issue, has made a couple of comments. I think I'll just read them out. She says there are a few little things, a few little corrections, I think. It was Commandant d'Orange, not Orange. Alexandre, not Alexandre. Juin was not in a palace, but in a villa. Darlan came to the villa because Juin had him woken up, and Juin did not want to decide by himself to join the Allies, as he was pressured to do so by Murphy. The Allies did try to bring arms to the Résistants, but had technical problems, and this was known only afterwards. A great film. And she also says that there are at least 3 films apart from this one by Christophe Muel and the other one by Rami Kimchi, who I mentioned.
Now, can I come in with a question here?
Yeah, go on.
It's Lynn's husband, Lawrence. We saw the Rami Kimchi film, and he makes a great play of the people using things like broomsticks disguised as guns, etc. They actually got the police to surrender with broomsticks. You didn't really bring that out, that most of the guns they had weren't real, and it was
well, they did mention
real
yeah.
sort of amateur dad's army kind of thing.
Right. Well, Robert Satloff does mention at a certain point that, you know, some of them had real guns, some of them had fake ones, and some of them even had stuff that looked like guns. But yeah, you're right. We did not specifically reference broomsticks. I mean, and to that point, and also to Nicole's points, which are all very appreciated, and thank you for bringing it up. I will say that this movie could have been at least twice as long as it was. It's a very, very complex story, and we spent a lot of time trying to simplify it, because you're trying to make a movie that people are going to watch at the end of the day, right? So we're trying to obviously be as accurate and historically accurate as possible. There's so many details. We got our information from books. We got a lot of our information from a book that José Aboukir himself actually wrote, which Chaim Sadoun referenced in his PowerPoint. You know, we got stuff from a radio interview that he did in 1992. We got obviously a bunch of stuff from the footage he was recorded on for French television in 1972, 30 years after this happened. But it was our biggest challenge in this movie was really to try to be as accurate as possible and give the proper story, but to do it in a way that was still, you know, digestible, and that wouldn't lose people too much, because, you know, even from a macro level and from a micro level, from the macro level, as you see, you know, we talked about, you know, what was going on, what was France's role, because that's always confusing, right? Are they allies? Are they enemies, right? And there was that whole ambiguity in this whole situation. So we really tried our best to navigate that. You know, but then from the micro level also, you know, who did what and what happened when, and, you know, which part of the story to tell, which part of the story not to tell. So, you know, it's a challenging story to tell, for sure.
Well, I think you did a very good job. A question for Professor Sadoun. There's a question about, is there a monument to the companions of the 8th of November 1942? And what else would you like to see done to memorialize this event?
There was only one, as far as I know, in Algiers, in one of the places in Algiers, but I think it was destroyed recently. I cannot find it today on the website, if it's still there or not. But perhaps something very important is that the only monuments that we have in North Africa from the Holocaust is in the cemetery of La Bourgelle in Tunis, of all the Jews that were deported from Tunisia to the Nazi camps in Europe. But for the second question, I think that what I think that I know about the resistance today, yes, the stuff that we have in the archives, some thousands of documents that should be researchers, be investigated by the scholars. Yes, there is so many aspects to know about this underground activity that it's amazing. And I think that the second point that it's amazing, it's not only their actions during the period of the war, that's mean what they did, but the awareness, the historical awareness that they had to preserve what they did. This is very important. And there is a huge material about this point of view of the Compagnon de 8 Novembre. It's really something very amazing to see both the actions and the preservations of the historical events that they did during, and it was during the torch operation. That means from the beginning of their actions, they began to preserve materials about their activities. This is very unusual from an espionage network, you know. From the Mounier Réseau in Tunisia, we don't have so interesting materials, documents. So I think that should be done something in Israel for the commemorations of the Compagnon de 8 Novembre. I think that in Algeria and in France, something should be done to remember them, to remember their action. It's very important. I think that Nicole, as I said, is doing a really fascinating work about the subjects, in the historical aspects of the subjects, and you know a lot. There is a lot to say, and Amos' contribution to this preservations of the history is very important. Thank you, Amos. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Nicole points out there is a square in Paris dedicated to the Compagnon du 8 Novembre in 1942, which is wonderful. Actually, I have another question, which is, you referred to the fact that the resistors were actually quite badly treated afterwards, weren't they? And some of them were interned. Can you explain why that was?
Yeah, I mean, we go into it in the movie, but ultimately, so again, to the point about how complicated this story is, basically after the Allies basically took over Algiers from the French, they made a deal with Darlan, right, as mentioned in the movie, who then got assassinated because he wasn't really well liked on either side of the fence. And then the next guy that came in power was also very right-wing, Juin, so really there was this constant sort of ambiguity, I would say, with the position in France and in French North Africa. I mean, if anyone here has seen Casablanca, which I assume almost everybody has, you get a sense of that sort of competing, you know, who's on which side, and some people are very fluid. Some people are you know, they'll take whichever side is will benefit their interests at that moment, right? So I think that was very indicative of the kind of situation that there was in Algiers at that time as well. And ultimately, the resistors, and especially the Jewish resistors, were not well liked by a lot of the people in power, and certainly someone like Juin, who was very right-wing and was almost to the side of Vichy, as was mentioned in the movie, right? So it really, you know, when they got jailed, that really didn't really raise too many eyebrows in Algiers, and certainly a lot of people in the French leadership were fine with that. But then, as we mentioned later on in the movie, the Americans ended up twisting the arm of the French leadership and said, you have to release these guys, they're actually on our side. But it's a very sort of, you know, we wanted the movie to end with like a hooray victory and, you know, the end, nice ending, right? But instead, it's like a bunch of them end up going to jail, right? And they're there for quite some time until they're released. And so everything's a little bit murky and hazy. It's not a straightforward story.
Professor Sardon, would you like to add anything to that?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Nicole has just told us that one of the resistants has just died. He was 104 a few days ago. That's amazing. I don't suppose there are many of them left.
Yeah. We tried actually there were a number of surviving resistors that we wanted to interview. One of them, whose name I won't mention, thought that this was like a huge production, and that if we interviewed him, we were going to make a lot of money from him, and he demanded something like $5,000 US to interview him. So that didn't work. Even if we had the money, we probably wouldn't have, because you're not supposed to pay people anything more than an honorarium, even if that. But Yeah, and we had trouble locating, but any living, any of the main players who were living, but we actually sort of by happenstance came across that footage of José Albuquerque from 1972, and we thought, and his cousin Calsanti, and we thought, that we can't get anything better than from the horse's mouth type of thing, right? So, and we actually did not know that footage existed when we first started the movie, so we were very excited about that.
Yeah.
Maybe Nicole, she can, if you want to give her my email, she could ask me any questions after.
Yeah,
'Cause
okay,
I
yeah,
don't know if I'll be
yeah.
able to
Or it
answer
could be,
all her questions here.
that's wonderful. And as for Dr. Helen Fry, of course, she's very well known to Lockdown University, and she is
was
a
wonderful, by the
lecturer,
way.
biographer, and she knows a huge amount about not just about intelligence and spies, but about World War II. And
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, I've actually
yeah.
gone into Rami Kimchi, the write-up on it, and he actually calls it docu-fiction.
Oh, docu-fiction.
So the thing about the broomsticks, where he said that it could well have
Probably
been
fiction.
the fiction part of the docu. So thank you, Nicole. Now, I was made to feel very guilty, and then I looked at what he said.
Okay, well, look, if anybody wants to get in touch with Amos, I'm sure that you'll be happy to be in touch with people if there are any questions. And also the same goes for Professor Sardoun. If you want to get in touch with him, we can put you in touch with him. Well, we've been going for quite a long time now. I think we've had a fantastic sort of overview of this amazing little known episode, and hopefully more people will know about it after tonight.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to show the film, and thank you to the Yad Ben Zvi for partnering Harif on this. And perhaps you'd like to partner us on our in not the next Zoom, but the one after that, which is on wartime North Africa.
Well, that's
Okay.
right.
So I will send you the details.
I
And
get-
perhaps we
there-
can partner on that too.
They're on screen right now.
Yeah. So this is with Sarah Abrevaya Stein, who's written a book on wartime North Africa with Omar Boom. And she will be coming in on the 7th of May. And before that, we have a very interesting lecture on the Jews of Bukhara, something completely different. And that is next week, not in 2 weeks' time because of Pesach. So I do urge you all to join us next Tuesday for that as well. And just a reminder, if you're not subscribed to the Harif mailing list, please do go to the website, subscribe, and you will receive details of our Zooms. So I think it just remains for me to thank you so much for a wonderful event, and I wish you all the best, Amos, with your film.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much.
many more interesting projects to come.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So thank you, Haim, and thank you, Nasia, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. It's been wonderful working with you.
Thank you.